says the latest issue is not a technical reason to stop pumping gas.
NASA will make another attempt to launch its most powerful rocket later. The Artemis program aims to put people back on the moon by 2025. Monday's launch had to be cancelled due to technical problems. Lieutenant Colonel Anne McLean is an Artemis astronaut.
One thing that we're very good at here at NASA is identifying problems, why they were there, coming up with mitigation measures going forward, and then ways to test these systems and saying, why did this happen? And all of that has happened over the course of the week. And I'm confident in the calls that the engineers and the management teams have made that we're ready to go.
BBC News has been told that many important decisions about the government's immigration agreement with Rwanda are being made by junior civil servants without enough training. Members of the PCS union say refugees' welfare is being affected. Ministers say they will work hard to open and constructive.
Mikhail Gorbachev will be laid to rest in Moscow later following his death at the age of 91. President Putin won't be going to his funeral in what's being seen as a snub to the man who oversaw the breakup of the Soviet Union.
Bus fares across England are going to be capped at £2. The move will cost the government £60 million and could save passengers an average of around 30%. The Transport Secretary is Grant Shapps.
Buses are the most used form of public transport. This will help with millions of journeys through the toughest months, the winter, when we know things are going to be tough. And I think it will help attract people to the bus, particularly at a time when fuel costs are so high.
And Jane Fonda has revealed that she's been diagnosed with cancer and is having chemotherapy. The 84-year-old actor told her 1.9 million Instagram followers that she has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it's 6:02. James Gregg is here. We've got some big local derbies. We've got some big cricket news, some depressing cricket news if you're an England fan. And also we are talking about, well, I mean, she's simply the GOAT.
She is, yeah. And Serena's numbers are just incredible as well, Ellie. I think when a player bids farewell, you always get a better appreciation for them, don't you? I'll throw a few out of those stats and numbers because you forget, don't you? You know that she's this incredible dominant force. We'll hear, obviously, from Russell Fuller shortly here on the programme. But, you know, when you're getting messages off the likes of Michelle Obama, Michael Phelps, most of the tennis community as well, I think you know you're a bit of a legend. We'll be hearing more about Serena shortly, like I say. But in terms of British interest at the US Open tennis, 2 down, 2 remaining in terms of those British players. Andy Murray beaten in four sets by Matteo Berrettini. Jack Draper, the youngster as well, 20 years old. He had to retire through injury in his round 3 match. He pulled a hammy. Later on today, this will make Russell Fuller feel very tired, me saying that. Dan Evans and Cam Norrie are in action. Derby Day on Merseyside, Old Firm Derby Day as well. I have details on those games. We've got commentary of the Old Firm Derby here on 5 Live. And Wales women as well look good for a World Cup playoff place, don't they, Ellie, for the first time after they won in Greece last night, 1-0. The Lionesses also play today. They just need a draw to book their spot at next year's World Cup. Big wins for Leeds and Huddersfield in Super League last night, booking their playoff spots on a high. And like I say, more sport throughout the programme, including that depressing cricket news in more depth here on Saturday Breakfast.
BBC Radio 5 Live.
The voice of the UK.
Saturday Breakfast.
Listen live, pause, rewind and discover with the BBC Sounds app.
Yes, good morning. Welcome to the programme. It's good to be back in the studio after another couple of weeks of cricket. That's been my life this year and this summer, certainly. And it's lovely to be with Greg as well. We've not worked together before.
You. We haven't, but it's the first time. So, exciting times ahead.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
a busy week. How's your week been?
It's been good, thank you. No, it has been good. It's England managed to wrap up the Test match within 3 days last weekend. So I had a weekend off, which was very, very nice indeed. And we are going to be talking lots more about Serena Williams because, you know, simply the greatest. And we're kind of going to ask you when you've been in the presence of greatness.
Oh, wow.
And you know you have been. I mean, I was lucky enough to see Serena play a few times at Wimbledon.
Really?
Working on our coverage on 5 Live. Are you kind of in the arts world?
The arts world, there's so many that you kind of, well, especially boxing as well, because my family are family of boxers and obviously McKenzie. So, for me, it's Mike Tyson, really, back in 2005. You know, he was one of the greatest boxers.
You were in his presence?
I wasn't in his presence, but I watched it on TV. So, you know, and as for the Serena Williams, and Serena and Venus, I've seen them in kind of crowds. I've been kind of on the outskirts, kind of looking and waving, and you are in the presence of greatness, really, with both of those sisters. So it'd be sad times, but all good things come to an end.
They do indeed. So that's going to be the thing we'll tell you about in a second. We'll speak to Russell Fuller also.
And there's loads to tell you about this morning. So NASA is going to try again to launch the most powerful rocket ever made. It's after the first attempt was thwarted by a combination of technical problems and bad weather. Hundreds of thousands of people are expected in Florida. They'll be hoping things go to plan this afternoon.
The pipeline that brings Russian gas to Central Europe, Nord Stream 1, has been closed for a few days for maintenance. It was supposed to reopen today, but that hasn't happened. We'll find out what's happening and the impact that it might have.
And Ellie, imagine this. Imagine starting university only to be told the only halls available are in another city. That's right, in another city. That's what's happening to some students in Manchester. We'll be speaking to one of them.
Yeah, both my daughters have just come to the end of their university careers, and I know what a stressful time that has been. It's also a big weekend for cricket fans. The 100 reaches its climax today at Lord's. Claire Connor is the interim chief executive of the ECB, and she'll join us on the show after 7 o'clock. Also Derby Day in Glasgow and on Merseyside. So we'll be speaking to the former Liverpool defender, Jose Enrique.
Wow, but first we'll be starting with an emotional night in New York, and we may have seen the last of Serena Williams on a tennis court.
She serves. Forehand from Williams. Backhand from Tomljanovic. Williams with the forehand. Forehand from Tomljanovic. Williams hits the forehand into the net. Serena Williams' career is over. The greatest of all time has finally run out of time. Here in the Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York.
Yes, the 40-year-old lost to Australia's Ayla Tomljanovic on a thrilling night at Flushing Meadows. She saved 5 match points in what proved to be the final game of a 3-hour, 3-set epic. Our tennis correspondent Russell Fuller joins us live from New York now. Russell, good evening to you. What a night for Serena Williams. What a way to go out. It did sound like a proper epic.
The perfect way to go out. I know that might sound a silly thing when you've lost the final match of your career, Ellie, but short of actually winning the title, which at the age of nearly 41, given that she's played very little tennis in the last year, was always so improbable. And there was nothing left in the tank in that third set, which she lost by 6-1. It was her 4th match in 5 days, having played the doubles with her sister Venus yesterday. And I really think the week couldn't have gone any better, because the first night it was tense. The match against Danka Kovinic was clearly a tricky one. The Serena Williams we'd seen at Wimbledon, and actually in a couple of tournaments leading up to the US Open, didn't look capable of beating a player inside the top 100. But she got through that. There was a ceremony on court afterwards, which she seemed happy to be part of, especially because she knew she had another match to look forward to. And then a famous win over the world number 2, Annette Kontaveit, in the second round. And then just playing her part in a match of sheer drama. An atmosphere which she may never have experienced in her life before. To save those 5 match points, to play such thrilling tennis, and to be able to give an on-court interview at the end, and to be able to cry on court, and to be able to smile and wave, even though she finds the whole retirement concept painful, I think was the perfect way to go out. And better to go out today than perhaps to come back in 48 hours' time, have absolutely nothing left in the tank, and possibly get beaten very easily.
Yeah, we'll hear from that emotional on-court interview in just a second, Russ. But is it really the last? Is it really the end for Serena? Is it the last we've seen her on a tennis court?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the end. And I really hope it's the end, because I don't think you can really beat that. And if she's going to come back in a year or two at the age of 42 or 43, then she's not going to be winning more Grand Slam titles. And I don't really see the point. Now, every athlete, every human being has the right to do what they want to do. But I really don't see it, primarily because she wants to have another baby. And let's hope she's successful and that she falls pregnant very quickly and Olympia will get the sister that she craves. And there's so many other things that Serena Williams wants to do. She's got her venture company which lends money to groups of people that would not normally receive this sort of funding. And there's so many other causes that she cares about. She's dedicated at least 25 years of her life to professional tennis. And she started playing when she was 3 or 4 on those public courts in Compton in Los Angeles. So that's nearly the best part of 4 decades. And I think whatever she chooses to do next, it's great that she can develop a future outside the parameters of the tennis court.
It's hard to sum up somebody's achievements when they've only just finished, really, isn't it? But how would you say Serena has changed the world of tennis, changed the world of sport, if you like?
I think her achievements are without parallel. Yes, Margaret Court did win 1 more Grand Slam title, but 13 of her 24 Grand Slam singles titles came before the Open era, when professionals weren't allowed to take part. So Williams has won the 23. It's an Open era record, 39 Grand Slam titles in all. She won 1, her final one, when 8 weeks pregnant at the Australian Open in 2017. And that is part of her wider contribution, isn't it? What a message that sends, to be able to win a slam when 8 weeks pregnant. But I think in particular to then to be able to come back after suffering a pulmonary embolism, which nearly cost her life a couple of days after giving birth to Olympia. And even though she didn't win again, to reach 4 Grand Slam finals in her late 30s. And that contribution is felt way beyond the sport of tennis. And I think she's also been confident to do things the way she wants to do things, which wasn't easy when you go back to the late 1990s. She put a lot of noses out of joint. She was herself on court. She was prepared to show her emotions on court. And I think a lot of women would perhaps still relate to this, that if it wasn't for people like Serena Williams making it possible, they might not feel so comfortable, because society, particularly if you go back 25 years or so, was dictating perhaps how a woman should behave. And Serena Williams is not frightened to show that she's ambitious, that she can let her aggression out, that she's desperate to win this match. And I think she often said what she wanted to, she wore what she wanted to, and that was a fine example to so many other people.
We're just recalling watching her at Wimbledon. Russ, you've obviously watched her in all the Grand Slams around the world. I mean, is there a moment, is there a Serena moment that will stand out for you?
The one I always remembered before tonight, which actually wasn't one of her biggest triumphs, in that it was a quarter-final at the US Open in 2015, the year that she so nearly won the calendar Grand Slam, winning all the same slams in the same year, actually lost in the next round to Roberta Vinci of Italy. It was a huge upset. The pressure on her that year and the interest in New York, it was like it has been this year for a final tournament. I remember the quarter-final she played against Venus Williams. And it was just one of those incredibly special sporting nights when you think of the history of those two. And all right, they've played for another 7 years after that, but at this stage they were still in their mid-30s, and they were packing out the Arthur Ashe Stadium, two sisters playing a quarter-final with everything that was at stake. And we had all the celebrities there. We had Oprah Winfrey and Kim Kardashian, and Donald Trump, who hadn't been present at that stage, was in the house as well. And it just felt so much bigger than tennis. And we've had that again this week with the likes of Mike Tyson, who you were discussing just now, and President Clinton in the stands on the opening day. It really has felt like a real celebration of everything she's achieved.
Russell, thank you very much indeed. We should mention as well that Andy Murray, Jack Draper, both out. Murray beaten by Berrettini, wasn't he? And Jack Draper had to pull out of his game because he was injured. So we will, we'll also talk about Dan Evans and Cameron Norrie still in though. So that is to come later on today. Russell Fuller, we'll let you go and get some sleep. Russell Fuller staying up late for us in New York. Let's have a listen to a bit more of what Serena had to say after the match.
Oh my God, thank you so much. You guys were amazing today. I tried, but I just played a little bit better. Thank you, Daddy. I know you're watching. Thanks, Mom. Oh my God. Just thank everyone that's here, that's been on my side so many years, decades, oh my gosh, literally decades. But it all started with my parents, and they deserve everything, so I'm really grateful for them. Oh my God, these are happy tears, I guess. I don't know. And I wouldn't be Serena if it wasn't Venus. So thank you, Venus. She's the only reason that Serena Williams ever existed. So, I don't know. Everyone from Jill to Isha to my sister Lynn, to my husband, to Olympia, to Jameer, for everyone in that box, Eric, Renee, Alexis, just Christy, Derek. It's been a fun ride, and it's been the most incredible ride and journey I've ever been on, in my life. And I'm just so grateful to every single person that's ever said, go Serena, in their life. I'm just so grateful because, yeah, you got me here.
Well, on behalf of the whole tennis community, we thank you for letting us be part of this journey and watching greatness for the last 25 years. It's been remarkable. Before I let you go, the quality of this match was unreal. Is there any chance you'll reconsider?
I'm literally playing my way into this and getting better. I should have started sooner this year. I don't think so, but you never know. I don't know.
Well, we hope so. You will be missed, but we will remember and have the best memories. Simply the best, Serena Williams. Congratulations on an incredible, extraordinary career.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, that sounded like a farewell to me, I've got to say.
Indeed. That was something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's the end.
Yeah, incredible career. 25 years, as they said there. All of those incredible number of Grand Slam titles, match wins, 319 weeks as world number one as well. Just a remarkable career and a privilege to be part of it. So we want to know if you've been in the presence of greatness, or if you've seen a farewell which was either glorious, perfect finish. So, I was there when Alistair Cook played his last test for England and scored a century in his last test match. But the ones that didn't go quite so well either. So
yeah.
So glorious farewells or slightly less glorious.
Yeah, I think people have got memories and those kind of farewell concerts. The last, tour, the last event, last, because a lot of artists do that as well. They'll kind of their farewell tour, only to come back.
Yes, I know, exactly. Yeah, it's got to be farewell and it's got to be properly. That's it. Finished. Yes. 85058 at BBC 5 Live. You know how to get in touch. It's 6:18.
The voice of sport.
This is the future of cricket.
Caught! He's gone!
100 balls in total.
Every ball counts.
Right arm over the wicket and he's bowled it!
He's gone for it! We knew he would.
Every time I got on strike, the crowd were cheering me on. I just had to give it to them.
And this time the ball's been swung. Oh my God! Oh my goodness, that's huge! That might be the biggest six I've ever seen.
The 100 finals day.
Hitting the ball in the air. This should be another one. Fielders underneath it. Catch taker.
That's what the 100 produces.
This afternoon from 2:45 on Radio 5 Sports Extra and BBC Sounds.
Coming up on 5 Live today, Patrick Kilty is here from 9 for his brand new show. He's joined by former EastEnder and Strictly winner Cara Toynton, West End and Broadway star Mauricia Wallace, and the Amazons, who are going to be playing your favourite football chants in the 5 Live Lounge.
And then it's Fighting Talk from 11 o'clock when Colin Murray will be joined by John Cross, Ebony Osoro-Brown, Justin Morehouse, and yes, me too.
You're doing a double show. And 5 Live Sport from 12 has live commentary from the Old Firm derby. Then we're off to Stamford Bridge for Chelsea v West Ham, followed by Aston Villa v Man City. Robbie Savage and Chris Sutton are here after the football to take your calls on 606.
And don't forget, it's finals day at the 100 as well, at Lord's commentary of both the men's and women's finals. On 5 Sports Extra from 2:50, we will speak to the interim chief executive of the ECB, Claire Connor, between 7 and 8 o'clock this morning. And also New Zealand great Susie Bates joins us before 9 o'clock as well. It's 6:20 now.
Right, it's take two for NASA's Artemis space mission, which will hopefully take man back to the moon. The original launch was set to take place on Monday before it was cancelled just 40 minutes before liftoff. It's hoped that today's launch will take place just after 7 p.m. UK time. Now, Dr. Ken Kramer is a research scientist and space journalist who is based near the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, and I spoke to him earlier on.
This launch is so significant because we haven't sent humans to the moon in 50 years, unfortunately. So Artemis 1 is a test flight. There won't be any astronauts on this flight, but it's a brand new rocket, and it's the most powerful rocket ever built in the whole world, 8.5 million pounds of thrust, 8.8 million. It's about 20% more powerful than Apollo and the space shuttle. And it's a test flight. So it's going to go to the moon. It's going to loop around the moon. It's going to do about a 5.5-week mission, test out the Orion capsule, go 40,000 miles beyond the moon. And then it'll come back to the Earth and smash into the atmosphere at about 25,000 miles an hour, which is really hot and really fast. And it's going to test out the heat shield, which has been beefed up, the biggest heat shield ever built. And they'll splash down in the Pacific Ocean and recover that. And if everything goes well with this mission, and it really has to, then we'll be able to send astronauts on the next mission called Artemis 2. That's about 2 years from now.
And this is the biggest SLS launch vehicle ever developed by the US Space Agency, isn't it?
The SLS is the biggest, yes, and it is the first one. This is the maiden flight of this rocket, so that's why it's so important. And they have to make sure they get everything right. And as you mentioned, this is the second attempt to launch the rocket. On Monday, there were a number of weather issues and technical issues. Even if the technical issues had been ironed out, the weather really wasn't good, and we would not have been able to launch. The weather is looking better. It's not perfect, but it's about 60% go, and we have about a 2-hour launch window. The weather should improve during the launch window to 80% towards the end of it. So, we're hoping to get it off this time.
And can you remind us why the launch was cancelled earlier in the week? Because this was something to do with the cooling of the engines, am I right in saying?
Right. There were about 4 or 5 problems. First, there was weather. There was lightning too close to the pad, and so that caused a delay in the tanking of the very cold cryogenic propellants. And then there was a hydrogen leak, and that's really bad, but they solved the hydrogen leak. And then the issue cropped up with the engine, as you mentioned. Engine number 3 couldn't be chilled down to the required operating temperature of about minus 420. They got to about minus 380, but that's just not cold enough for it to function properly. It wouldn't function correctly, and that could have doomed the mission, actually. But it turned out that was a faulty sensor, but they didn't know that at the time, so they had to stand down and be careful. There was also a crack in a flange, and there was a vent valve issue. So there are about 5 or 6 issues altogether, and they were getting close to the end of the launch window. So the team decided to stand down, which I think is a really good decision. There were just too many issues facing them. So the team is rested. They went in, they looked at the engine very thoroughly and decided it was a faulty sensor, actually, is why the engine wasn't cooling. So the engine itself is actually okay. It was just a faulty sensor. And they have about 20 other sensors that can give them that data. And so they're pretty confident now that they'll be able to measure the temperature of that engine.
And are you able to talk us through what will happen at the different stages of the rocket's flight?
Sure. Yeah, it will launch 8.8 million pounds of thrust. About 2 minutes into the flight, the solid rocket boosters will be jettisoned. And then the upper stage will fire several more minutes into the flight. And then a few minutes after that, the upper stage will fire and it will separate from the core stage. About 2 hours into the flight, the Orion capsule will be sent separate from the upper stage, and from there on, it will fire the engines for the translunar injection, send it towards the moon, and then it'll go to the moon, loop around the moon about 1.5 times. That will be then taking about several weeks, 5.5 weeks or so. So then it'll fire its engine again, and it'll head back towards the Earth, and again, it'll hit the Earth's atmosphere at about 25,000 miles an hour. It will splash down on 3 parachutes in the Pacific Ocean. That heat shield is critical to make sure the capsule survives, and that's one of the key tests of this whole flight. And it'll splash down in the Pacific. It'll get recovered by U.S. Navy ships. They will take out some of the avionics components and reuse them, I should say, in the Orion capsule for the Artemis 2 mission. So then they'll bring it back here to KSC after it's recovered, give it a thorough analysis, and if everything looks good, they'll proceed with the Artemis 2 flight in about 2 years, towards the end of 2024.
Dr. Ken Kramer there, research scientist and space journalist, speaking to us earlier.
Still quite mind-boggling, isn't it, to think of what that
exciting.
whole project... You look at the pictures and you think, wow, that's just incredible.
It just makes me want to go to space. I wanted to be a spaceman when I was growing up.
Did you?
Yeah, I still do.
Oh, it's not too late. It's not too late. Now, it is barely a month since the Lionesses became European champions, but they are back in action with 2 World Cup qualifiers. They're away to Austria later today and then at home to Luxembourg on Tuesday. Earlier this week, the England midfielder Georgia Stanway caught up with Five Live's Rachel Burden. Stanway's now playing for Bayern Munich after 7 years with Man City. And she spoke to Rachel about what's been a crazy few weeks.
It's been like a bit of a roller coaster. Obviously, post Euros, everybody has a bit of like a come down and a bit of like a no day in life kind of lives up to the fact that you've just won that trophy. So yeah, everyday life kind of seems a little bit boring to some people. But I'm obviously fortunate enough to have taken part in a new challenge, a new club, a new adventure. So yeah, I've been happy to get the ball rolling again pretty quickly.
I know that you were quite specific that you wanted to go to Bayern, you wanted to move clubs because you wanted a new challenge. You didn't want to sit still. This move has come at just the right time for you.
Oh, perfect. And even before the Euros, I felt like I was in such a good headspace to have got the move complete. I was 100% back in the decision that I'd made, and I just knew that that was the club for me. So going into the Euros, I felt like I was in such a good headspace, and I almost felt free. I felt like absolutely everybody was behind me and willing me to do well. And going into the tournament, I felt like a different person. Like, I can't explain how I feel. I felt free. I felt just in the moment, and I just wanted to try and be as present as I could for the 9 weeks that we were on camp, knowing that it could be a 9 weeks that changed your life.
Yeah, and so it proved to be. And they've welcomed you with open arms at Bayern, I know that. But they also have put you through the ringer and through this initiation process. And I'm sure you'd love to be reminded of how it went. So I think we can play a bit of it to you now, meeting your new teammates. Here's you on the microphone. Not a bad effort, Georgia. What was that like for you, standing on the chair, bellowing out to everyone?
Well, initially I was going into the room to sing a different song, but as soon as I sat down and I heard a few whispers and I heard a few people like singing in the background, and I just thought, it's got to be done. I went up there and I give it beans, and yeah, I just went for it. And at first the girls were rubbing the salt and giving me a bit of booze, but then soon after they were joining in, arms in the air, and yeah, they just enjoyed it as much as I did. And I didn't expect it to go as viral as it did. I was just doing it for a bit of a laugh, but no, like, the girls loved it, and yeah, I had to be proud to be English.
Yeah, when I was listening to it, I was thinking, oh, how's it going to be hitting the high notes? But you can sing.
I can't.
Can you?
I tell
who's the best?
that I can, but I'm absolutely terrible. There's like a running joke in the team that if anybody has to sing, it's me, and that I have a laugh saying that I take requests. But honestly, I'm so bad at singing, and I think that's why they make me do it.
Well, that was Georgia Stanway talking to Rachel Burden, and 5 Live will bring you updates of the World Cup qualifier between Austria and England. That is at 4:30 this afternoon. Plus, there will be live text commentary on the BBC Sport website. You're listening to Breakfast on a Saturday morning on 5 Live, and the time is 6:30.
Listen on BBC Sounds. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
And the BBC News on 5 Live. Serena Williams has paid an emotional tribute to her parents as she bowed out of the US Open. Her loss to Ayla Tomljanovic at Flushing Meadow is likely to be her last ever competitive match. We'll have more in the sport with James in a moment.
Russia's main gas pipeline to Europe is to stay closed indefinitely. Gazprom says it's found an oil leak in a turbine on Nord Stream 1. The company which made the turbine says that it isn't a reason to stop pumping gas.
The managing director of the Avanti West Coast Rail Company is stepping down following a backlash about timetable cuts. The company has blamed staffing issues for reducing services between London and Manchester by 2/3.
And there will be another attempt to launch NASA's biggest ever rocket later. It's part of the Artemis program, which aims to put people on the moon again by 2025.
We are asking you, because Serena Williams has bowed out of tennis in emotional fashion at Flushing Meadow at the US Open. We're asking you for moments that you witnessed a great farewell, or moments that you witnessed greatness. Al in Oxford says, the first and last time I saw George Best play, a personal farewell performance, if you like, I do, he says, was for Fulham against Southampton. He got sent off. Couldn't cope with the celebrity crowd. So that's kind of, farewell in sort of certain slightly ignominious circumstances.
Yes, there's quite a few. There's another one here for Sir Alex Ferguson's last game at Old Trafford. Still gives me goosebumps to think about it.
Yeah. James Gregg, any big farewells for you in a sporting sense?
A few. Some more significant than others in terms of, our audience. One, though, Kelly Holmes. I remember I was only 11 years old at the Don Valley Stadium when she ran her last race. It was the British Grand Prix, running the 800 metres, and that was in 2005, August the 21st. So, yes, that makes me feel very, very old indeed. But that was quite emotional. I was a huge Kelly Holmes fan, by the way.
Yeah, well, she was double Olympic champion in 2005, wasn't she?
She was, exactly. At that time, she was the GOAT. And, I always used to... I remember her a letter when I was a kid as well, and she wrote back with this great signed photo and everything. So, I was a massive fan. I had to be there for that. So, big fan of Kelly Holmes. And on a slightly different tack, One Direction's final gig. Also in Sheffield. I've got to say, I was there kind of by default, and then there was a girl stood next to me, and she'd flown all the way from Canada to be there, and I thought, goodness gracious, I'm here, and I'm kind of, whatever, it's a nice concert, nice atmosphere. But it was, awash with emotion, this thing.
I was going to say, I bet there were tears.
And I'd travelled 10 minutes down the road.
And she'd flown in from Canada.
I felt a bit of a phony, really, being there. Yeah, she'd flown all the way from Toronto. Oh, goodness.
Excellent. So, yes, so the big farewells that you witnessed, but also the kind of the emotion behind them as well. Who knew that James Gregg was a Kelly Holmes superfan? We know now.
There we go. I know. And One Direction, apparently. Oh, dear. Well, we'll talk a bit more about that big superstar, Serena, because, we may have just seen her wield a racket competitively for the very last time. I'm not so sure, actually, about that. But tributes pouring in from the tennis world all around, different sports and beyond, of course. You've got Michelle Obama, Tiger Woods, Michael Phelps all tweeting this morning. Here she is after being knocked out of the US Open overnight.
It's been the most incredible ride and journey I've ever been on, in my life. And I'm just so grateful to every single person that's ever said, go Serena, in their life. I'm just so grateful because, you got me here.
Those cheers are absolutely fantastic, and why not? She's had plenty of them throughout that career. 23 Grand Slam titles, masses of prize money, a huge legacy, of course, that stretches beyond tennis. Getting more throughout the programme this morning. Of course, there's a great piece on the BBC Sport website as well. In terms of the Brits in New York at the US Open, Jack Draper and former champion Andy Murray both knocked out yesterday. Murray lost in 4 sets to the Italian 13 seed Matteo Berrettini in the third round. Draper retired from his match, unfortunately, against Russia's Karen Khachanov with a hamstring injury in the third set. That match was tied at 1-1 at that stage. He did look good, Draper. Dan Evans and Cam Norrie to come later, though, in round 3. 2 huge derbies today in football. The Merseyside derby at Goodison Park will be an absolute rip-roarer. After a bit of a stuttering start to the season, Liverpool boss Jurgen Klopp has been boosted by the return of two forwards, Darwin Núñez back from suspension and Diogo Jota from injury.
Diogo probably will be in as well. He trained yesterday with the team first time. He will train today. I have to make a decision. Does it make sense that we involve him already or not? But if, then it's the first time that we have 5 attackers. Sounds like Christmas.
Sounds like Christmas. I love that. We've got updates of that from 12:30. During commentary from Celtic Park, the Old Firm, Celtic hosting Rangers. A win for Ange Postecoglou's side would put them 5 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership.
Still very early in the season. There's still plenty of games to be played, and the whole psychological aspect of it. And like I said, some people use it and some people, think there's merit in it. I just don't buy into it. I never have. Like I said, to me, there's no game out there that I don't want to win. Whether that puts us 1 point ahead or 5 points behind, or, mate, there's a game to be won.
Rangers, meanwhile, have a whole host of injuries. Like I say, full match commentaries from midday here on 5 Live. Last night in Women's World Cup qualifying, Wales won 1-0 away in Greece. They now only need a draw in their final Group I qualifier against Slovenia to secure a playoff place for the very first time. England, meanwhile, need 1 point away against Austria later to qualify for the Women's World Cup. It is the Lionesses' first match since their Euros win. Cricket now, in the Women's 100, the Southern Brave women beat the Trent Rockets by 2 runs at the Ageas Bowl. They'll now play the Oval Invincibles in the final today at Lords. In the men's final, which is also being staged at Lords, the Trent Rockets play the Manchester Originals. The Originals did beat the London Spirit by 5 wickets in that Elimination Day match yesterday. They were chasing 1-5-1, and an amazing opening partnership between captain Laurie Evans and fellow opener England's Phil Salt helped them to 101 without loss from just 49 balls. It really made that run chase easy. It put them into tonight's final, and here is Salt.
We know that if we play our best cricket, we'll be thereabouts. We had a good game against them. We probably let ourselves down with the ball, and we know what we need to focus on. So, I think between us and them, I think we'd have taken a little bit more away from that game at Old Trafford, even though they won it.
Caps a nice season for Salt, doesn't it? Both games on the telly, iPlayer and Sports Extra later, and both Wigan and Huddersfield booked their spots in the Super League playoffs on a high with wins last night.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live. Listen live on digital, online, smart speaker, or the BBC Sounds app.
Still felt pretty warm coming up to Manchester yesterday, but is the weather starting to turn as we head into September? Stav Daneos, morning.
Good morning to Ellie and Greg. Yes, that is the point there, Ellie, to weather turning gradually. Now we're into the first of meteorological autumn. It's not going to feel particularly cold, though, this weekend, like you mentioned there, Ellie. So we've got warm winds coming up from the south, but low pressure will be dominating the weather, more especially across the west of the UK this weekend. That'll bring wet and breezy conditions. Further east, though, it'll tend to remain largely dry with some brightness at times. And it's going to continue to feel quite warm across the board. Today, though, we have heavy rain, which will continue to affect parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, and later Western Wales and the far southwest of England. But the rest of the country, so many central and eastern areas, will remain mostly dry with some sunshine around before scattered showers develop this afternoon. Some of these possibly heavy with the risk of thunder. It's going to be a breezy day across western areas and fairly warm. Temperatures across the UK range from 18 to 22 degrees, but up to the mid-20s across eastern England. Tonight, further rain, some of it heavy, will affect the north and the west of the UK. A few showers elsewhere, otherwise largely dry. Windy in the north and the southwest, and it will be a warm night, 12 to 16 degrees. Tomorrow, a spell of wet and windy weather will push northwards across western parts of the UK. Elsewhere, it's a mixture of sunny spells and a few showers, but again, many eastern areas will tend to stay dry. Temperatures, again, warm, ranging from 23 to 26 Celsius. That's your latest 5 Live weather.
The voice of the UK. This is 5 Live. Saturday breakfast.
Listen live on digital, online, smart speaker, or the BBC Sounds app.
It's just over a fortnight now since students across the country got their A-level results. Many students have now got places on the courses they wanted to do and are preparing to move to a new city to start university. But some students getting accommodation is proving difficult. Manchester Metropolitan University says its halls of residence are oversubscribed. As a solution, the university has offered around 250 new student digs in Liverpool and Huddersfield. Well, Jim Dickinson is an associate editor at Wonky, a higher education think tank with an online news service for universities. So quite unprecedented here, Jim, in terms of what Manchester Met are doing.
Yes, it's extraordinary, really. And one of the things that we thought might happen over the past few days is they might be able to go and stay perhaps in the University of Manchester's halls of residence, because of course there are two really big universities in Manchester, but the University of Manchester then, the day before yesterday, announced that it had also run out of its guaranteed first-year accommodation for students, and it also now is offering students the opportunity to live in other cities. And in the University of Manchester's case, it's offering Preston as one of the places that students can live, as well as Liverpool and, of course, Manchester Met Huddersfield. So a real crisis in Manchester.
And I mean, we're talking Liverpool and Huddersfield. I mean, it's like 30 miles from Manchester, right?
Yeah, and the thing about it is, even if we said to ourselves, well, a 1 hour commute is a 1 hour commute, the thing about it is that there's not actually that much time spent in lectures and seminars. That whole idea is that people are able to spend a bit of time in the library. They're able to combine with perhaps part-time work. Quite often students are in part-time work until 2 or 3 in the morning in clubs and nightclubs, and it's just not straightforward to be bodying around the towns and cities of the Northwest as a student. You know, it just doesn't work like that. You really do need to live where you study, I think, for lots of students at least.
But it's just not isolated to Manchester Metropolitan University, is it? This is happening up and down the country.
Yes, I mean, this is a problem that seems to be unfurling in all sorts of places. So last year we had students studying in York, living in Hull. This year, the University of the West of England in Bristol is offering students the opportunity to live in Newport. Students at St Andrews are being offered the chance to live in Dundee. There's a big crisis in Glasgow. And in the Republic of Ireland, there's a huge crisis with students kind of, sleeping in cars and, 3 or 4 students in a room where they've completely run out of student accommodation and, real crisis on.
And Jim, why do you think there is a shortage of university accommodation? What's happening?
Well, it's very interesting, this. So there's a bunch of factors that it looks like have kind of conspired this particular year in a perfect storm. First of all, you'll remember that we've had 2 years now before this year of more students getting good A levels than we thought were going to get them. And that's because of the kind of big problems with the pandemic and benefit of the doubt and changes to exams and all that sort of stuff. And that means that more students with good A levels in some cities for 2 years in a row are still in the system because they're in their second year or third year, as well as the kind of relatively normal numbers this year. So that's lots of pressure on houses, shared houses in some of the really big cities. You've got lots of landlords of private accommodation kind of selling up, and kind of, a kind of big shift post pandemic. Some of them are switching some of their accommodation in big cities to Airbnb, and there's kind of less regulation around Airbnb accommodation. Add all of that up, and you don't need much shift in each of those little pockets to create a really big problem in some cities, and Manchester is a classic. But what's fascinating is this is happening in big cities in France, in the Netherlands, across Scandinavia. Massive crisis in Turkey at the moment. Erdogan the President Erdogan's in big conflict with student protesters all across Turkey around student accommodation shortages. So something is happening post-pandemic in big cities that is causing this problem, both for students, but crucially also for renters more generally, because the other thing is there's a big population spike, and there's lots and lots of 18, 19, 20, 21 and 22-year-olds around who all need to rent rather than buy.
So more students than accommodation. Now, Manchester Met says it's doing everything it can to find them rooms in Manchester as soon as it can, and it does go on in a statement to say that this will only affect 2% of its intake of students this September. And we'll be talking to a student affected just after 7:30 this morning. So thanks, Jim Dickinson there, an associate editor at Wonky, a higher education think tank with an online news service for universities. Thanks, Jim.
12 shortlisted albums, but only one can win the coveted Mercury Prize. Sam Fender, Wet Leg, Little Sims and other big names will compete for the prestigious music award.
What an amazing array of music.
Join Six Music live with interviews and the winning album played out in full.
The winner of the Mercury Prize is...
the Mercury Prize 2022. Thursday night from 7 on BBC Sounds.
Very interesting topic, student accommodation. We are going to hear, as you said, Greg, after 7:30 from a student who's in that position, not actually knowing where he's going to be living next year. And if you're a parent with a child who's about to go to uni, or if you are about to go to uni yourself and you're listening this morning, then do get in touch with us and let us know, because it's really uncertain.
Absolutely. It must be
worrying.
Very stressful. I mean, let alone getting into university. You finally get your place and now you've got nowhere to actually stay.
Absolutely.
So, it's not nice.
No. Or you might be going to university, or you might be about to star in The Crown, alternatively, because this is a story that you might have seen around today. A former head girl has landed her first professional acting role, playing Kate Middleton in Netflix's The Crown. 19-year-old Meg Bellamy won her debut role after submitting self-taped auditions for a casting call issued on social media.
That's incredible. That is just the career-defining role. I mean, that could either make or break you.
Yeah.
I mean, elsewhere, if you brought a Euro Millions ticket, you might want to check it. It's been confirmed that a UK ticket holder has won a £110 million jackpot. I didn't do the lottery yesterday, so I'm like, it's definitely not me, but it might be my twin brother who I know does it, so I will call him in a minute. And if the winner is a single ticket holder, it would make them richer than Harry Styles and Gary Barlow, according to the Sunday Times Rich List.
Yes, interesting stuff. 6:46, sorry. Oh, God, fast forwarded 2 hours, 6:46. The Russian gas pipeline to Central Europe, Nord Stream 1, was due to reopen today after 3 days of maintenance. But last night, the Russian firm Gazprom announced that due to a leak, the pipeline would be staying closed indefinitely. It comes just hours after the G7 announced that they would cap the price of Russian oil in support of Ukraine. Well, energy prices have soared since Russia's invasion, and scarce supplies could push up the cost even further. Mike Fullwood is Senior Research Fellow at the Oxford Institute for Energy Studies, and he joins us now. Morning to you, Mike.
Morning, Ellie.
What is the significance of this for Europe and for the UK beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess it's sort of the could be the last straw for sort of the gas supply down Nord Stream for Europe. I mean, it was running at fairly low levels before this brief period of maintenance, about 20% of capacity. But it does look as though it won't come back on unless there's miraculously the oil leak disappears or somehow gets fixed. But it loses the amount of gas equivalent to about 10% of Germany's gas demand, where the gas was destined for. So this could be the final straw, which kind of tips things over the edge, and we get severe demand problems in the winter.
Yeah. So what proportion of gas around on the European mainland was supplied by Nord Stream?
Well, at capacity, it provided roughly about equivalent to about 60% of Germany's demand, or maybe some sort of 15% of total EU demand. Now that's all disappeared, on top of also closing the pipeline running through Belarus and Poland, which supplied about sort of half as much as Nord Stream did. So all that gas has been lost. Hence the reason the EU are looking at rationing demand, and have been in preparation for winter, been trying to fill up storage, which they've done reasonably successfully.
What is this going to do to gas prices, which, as we know, are already horrendous?
Yeah, well, we did see that when this 3-day maintenance period was announced, gas prices shot up again by another 40 to 50%, a little bit less so in the UK, but on the continent. They did come back down again on the belief that this was temporary and it would reopen. So I'd imagine on Monday morning gas prices will go up again. Not sure how much, but it certainly will get higher. And there's little prospect of any additional supply coming from anywhere else. Certainly, this winter for that sort of northwest European market.
And what kind of a knock-on effect does that have for us in the UK?
I mean, it'll knock onto our prices because the UK is sort of connected to the global gas market, as is fairly well known now. I'm not sure it'll have much impact on the amount of gas, especially liquefied natural gas, coming to the UK, because all the pipelines and the import plants importing liquefied natural gas into Northwest Europe are already full. In fact, they're running at more than capacity. So there is no room to send any more gas into that region. And obviously, as is reasonably well known, the UK has been importing a lot of liquefied natural gas and effectively re-exporting gas to the EU through pipelines, and they've been running at more than full capacity. So that situation is likely to change. I think the real risk is a cold winter, because usually we would import from the EU in the winter, having exported in the summer. But if it's a cold winter, then we could struggle in terms of getting gas from the EU if the EU is also very, very short of gas. So that's the biggest risk is a cold winter. A mild winter, you might just about squeak through.
How politicised is this now? I mean, we know it's pretty political, of course, because of the way that Europe relies so much on, or has relied on Russian gas in the past. We've heard talk about price caps imposed across Europe as well. But how much of this has this now become a real political football across Europe?
Well, Putin's been sort of pulling the political string, or it appears, on the gas supply for months now. So, to have, you might say, to lose a couple of turbines is unfortunate. To lose more than that is a little bit negligent. So, so it does appear that it seems rather unusual that this pipeline's been operating pretty much flat out at full capacity every day of every year, apart from its usual 10 days of maintenance in July, for 5 or 6 years. And all of a sudden, all the turbines sort of disappear. So there's a certain irony that the G7 announced a cap on Russian oil prices, and there's an oil leak at a gas turbine.
So if you were being cynical about it, you might say this is not entirely coincidental that this oil leak has caused the whole pipeline to be closed.
Yes, it does seem a little bit too much of a coincidence.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure we will talk about this. It's worrying times for all of our energy supplies, and particularly if you're on the European mainland too. But Mike Fullwood is Senior Research Fellow at the Oxford Institute for Energy Studies. 6:52.
And coming up a bit later, we're going to be telling you about the ice hockey team without an ice rink. They're the Stanley Penguins, and they're an under-20s team from the Falkland Islands.
Yeah, it's quite a great story. This extraordinary an ice hockey team that largely plays on online skates, or inline skates rather. I've been speaking to their coach Grant Budd.
We just train out of a normal sports hall that you would see probably in the UK or at school. Nothing too large, but it does what we need to do. And we then went over to inline roller skates, and that's where everything progressed and got big in the Falklands, and pretty much is the number one sport at this time.
It's a bit different though, isn't it? Skating on inline skates to actually skating on real ice.
Absolutely. You tend to have a lot more friction. Of course, when it comes to ice, it's a far more, fast game. And we just adapt to, when we go overseas.
Well, we'll talk a bit more, and we'll hear from Grant Budd a bit more after 7 o'clock this morning. Ice hockey is incredibly popular in the Falkland Islands, apparently, despite the fact there is no ice rink.
Yeah, what do they do? Just on dry slopes?
It's kind of inline skates, right. so like kind of roller skates.
Okay.
And they train in a sports hall, and then if they want to skate on ice, they have to go to Chile. From the Falkland Islands, they have to fly from the Falklands to Punta Arenas in Chile, which is where they've been training. They've been playing a little mini tournament ahead of this bigger tournament, which starts in Miami.
Are they good
this week?
Are they
well,
right?
I think they're all doing all right, actually. Yes, yeah. When I was speaking to Grant earlier on, he was saying that that one of their because there's an under 20s team, so kind of senior level team, under 16s and under 12s as well. So different enough players to make up 3 different teams, with a little bit of help from other countries as well. But it's a fascinating story. So we'll hear more about that.
More about it, definitely. So these are the last films we each saw at the cinema.
What the hell? Good morning, aviators. This is your captain speaking.
There's nothing simple about this job.
Something else going on here?
Yeah. I'm not the only one on this train looking for this case.
Top Gun Maverick and Bullet Train,
in case you thought that we would have been going to see some kind of subtitled film. No, we've gone for the full-on action movies, haven't we?
These are good action movies. I mean, that was one of my best films, one of the best films I've seen this year. But hundreds of cinemas are selling tickets today for just £3 to celebrate National Cinema Day. So cinemas have had it tough over the past few years, and one of the UK's biggest chains, Cineworld, confirmed that it had considered bankruptcy in the US. Well, we're joined now by Gareth Boggis. He's from the Abbeygate Cinema in Bury St Edmunds. So how did the idea come around about the £3 ticket day, Gareth?
Good morning. It's a really great industry-wide initiative. So there have been previous incarnations of this before with sponsors. We did it recently with the National Lottery. This is the first industry-led one since the 1990s. And it's just a great way of getting people back into cinemas and making it a really affordable day out.
And what you got on offer at the Abbeygate Cinema?
We've gone for sort of the widest range of films that we could today. So we've got a couple of family offerings. We've got Minions. We've got all sorts of stuff. We've got Top Gun, obviously. We've got Elvis is back. Not that Elvis ever went away, but we've tried to give people a bit of everything, just to try and show them what they've missed, but also get them in to see the trailers of what's coming up next as well, because there's some really exciting stuff coming out before the end of the year.
And Gareth, what's it been like for cinemas since the pandemic?
Yeah, it's been a challenge, but I think cinema is really strong still. You know, it's doing comparatively well against 2018, 2019, which were record-breaking years for cinema, especially certainly UK cinema. And it has been a real challenge, but I think it's doing really well. And I think so many cinemas have invested it so much in the teams, in the infrastructure, in terms of technology and all sorts of ways to try and make it the best possible experience. And it really is, such a reasonably priced entertainment option, really. You think if you compare it to a day out at the football or a day out at the theatre, it's great for a couple of hours of fun, which could be a blockbuster or could be one of those art house titles with subtitles and a couple of hours of reading.
It's about making an experience as well, Gareth, isn't it? As we were just saying, that if you can be somewhere with really comfortable seats. I mean, the days of going to places with rubbish old seats, smelling a bit dodgy, and not very clean are long in the past, aren't they? It feels like a proper kind of plush experience now at a lot of places.
I think that's totally it, and I think certainly with us at the Abbeygate, you can take your drinking with you. You want people to feel totally relaxed, and obviously at the moment there's as the previous section talking about cost of living and the rest of it, there's so many things that we need distracting from at the moment. So if you can go somewhere and be completely comfortable, you can have a drink, you can lose yourself in a totally different world. It's fantastic, and there is nothing that beats cinema, which is why I think it is one of those things that it has had struggles, but will continue to grow and be as strong as ever.
And Gareth, in terms of bringing your own snacks in, is that still allowed? I mean, I was always never really knew if you could, because sometimes we'd just bring our own snacks in because it was so expensive for food in cinemas.
Yeah, it's one of those sort of slightly taboo areas, because ideally, like with us, we discourage it because it is slightly dearer than you can get it elsewhere, and I do totally appreciate that. And again, there is so many other things that need money spending on them, but for us, that's one of the really important ways of helping us to make some money to cover all the things that needs, so I can keep my team and keep the building, because the cost of film is so dear now that all those little bits help. But really, we just want people in the door. So if it's sneaking a box of sweets in, that's
so £3 today, Gareth. Are you expecting a busy day today then?
Yeah, we've got some great numbers for the films all the way throughout the day. It's really, really good to see, and hopefully there will be people that it's their first trip back since for a couple of years maybe. But if not, if it's just that today's an opportunity to watch your second film of the month or your third film, fantastic. It's just so nice to see people coming in, especially families, really.
Well,